Canada pledges billions in new defense spending but doesn't reach NATO's 2% commitment. This is the Great Way North Report. So the new defense policy is going to focus on threats to the Arctic, boosting military striking power. So 2 years after being ordered on an urgent basis, a new defense policy for Canada was unveiled Monday that promises, among other things, to bolster military surveillance and combat capabilities in the Arctic. Took 2 years. I could have probably did it in like a month. So new equipment including airborne early warning aircraft, AWACS, long-range surface missiles for the Army, and utility helicopters that may or may not be manned. I'm all for those things. I don't even think we have any surface-to-surface missiles, except for on our ships. We don't have one in the Army itself. I don't believe so. Department of National Defense is considering acquiring such as air defense systems to protect critical infrastructure and new submarines. Things I've been talking about for years. So the new policies consider our North strong and free. Includes $8.1 billion in new defense spending over the next 5 years and commits to an additional $73 billion in defense spending over the next 2 decades. It's not going to meet our 2% GDP, but it will rise to 1.76% of GDP by 2029-30. So again, it's a long process, and it'll probably be pushed back. Is it a step in the right direction? Yes, because we do need these things, but whether we'll see it or not is another story. This is, of course, a response to Russia's war in Ukraine, which is kind of like a wake-up call, and to China's interference in our elections, as well as what happened during the pandemic. Because ever since the end of the Cold War, we really have let our military slide. And at a time when the military has to slash spending because of the government's overspending, I'm going to take this article with a grain of salt, and we'll wait and see. Seeing is believing. So according to the Canadian Global Affairs Institute, NATO has been clear that 2% GDP is the floor for military spending, not the ceiling. So you can spend more than 2%, but they want you to spend 2%. And we're not even there. So Trudeau is once again kicking the can down the road by getting most of this defense spending in today's announcement until after the next election. And I totally agree. We could get a lot of stuff done now, but the federal government is overextended financially. Like currently, we haven't even started building our new frigates. They're currently on the last of the Arctic patrol ships and are going to do the Coast Guard variants next. I think steel has been cut on the first Coast Guard variant, but it's going to take another 2 years before we even cut steel on the frigates. And because it's a brand new design, it's going to be a lot longer to build, and it's a bigger ship too. Because it's a bigger ship and it's the first of its class, it's going to take longer to build, and the sea trials and delivery time will be a lot longer. But once you build the first couple, then it becomes faster for the next ones, unless you start adding new things. So why is this important? Because we face Canada's sovereignty in the Arctic and northern regions with a changing physical and geographical landscape, climate change. And Russia is remilitarizing or increasing their militarization of their own Arctic zone. And China, claiming to be a near Arctic power, of all things, really wants to explore options in the Arctic Ocean. I say we block China from our Arctic areas, and the only way to do that is to have the capabilities to do so, because the Arctic is a treasure trove of natural resources. Now they want to study the possibility of acquiring new submarines to replace the 3 decades old Victoria class, which had never been bought in the first place, but were a stopgap measure and cheap, and have caused nothing but problems since they were bought. They want to acquire up to 12 conventionally powered submarines. Hey, I'm all for that. But Trudeau make it sound like more of a question of when, not if. So he's not prepared to do it. Well, I'd be happy with 6. 6 submarines and then a bunch of those narco submarines, those small ones. Can you imagine a bunch of small narco submarines? How much havoc they play in coastal areas of somewhere? Or drones? Underwater drones? Oh, that'd be great. We should develop that. So we need to patrol and protect our Arctic in the coming decades. So they want to acquire long-range missiles capabilities for the Army. These missiles will be deployed to enable our forces to shoot at greater ranges than our adversaries in combat. Obviously, what's going on in Ukraine is definitely reshaping military thinking. Ukraine is doing a great job of holding back the Russians after the Russians' initial successes, and have been able to demonstrate they can strike deep into Russian territory. And of course, the strategy identifies both China and Russia as potential threats. We're in a Cold War. In fact, Moscow's war in Ukraine is sapping the strength of the Russian military. As much as it sucks for Ukrainians, prolonging the war is actually in the best interest of NATO. It gives us time to rebuild. Now, Russia's northern military buildup creates uncertainty for NATO that must be addressed. Well, Russia is doing that simply to deter NATO from attacking it while it's engaged in a war with Ukraine. Because right now, Russian military has not had a really good track record in Ukraine, which is why it's bogged down. They even had to use mercenaries for a time. China in the South China Sea is looking to isolate Taiwan, and that's why we need a navy in the water as soon as possible. We're also facing recruitment crises as well. Up the pay. Dangle more carrots. Affordable housing and daycare. Military should be first on that list. Join the military, you get more affordable housing, you get more daycare. I'm all for that. But I think our real problem is our procurement system. It needs to be reformed and it needs to be sped up. And we need to start building the infrastructure within Canada to be able to produce stuff ourselves. I don't know why we don't. We can do both. We can buy abroad and we can also produce ourselves. But with this current government and the way it's overspent, the future doesn't look too rosy. So I'm going to take a wait and see approach to how they're going to do it. But I'm all for it. I think we need attack helicopters too. But okay, we do need some attack helicopters, more artillery, rocket systems, missile systems, just lots of stuff we need. But it remains to be seen whether this current government can deliver. Probably not. It's probably going to kick it down to the next election. But any Canadians out there, let me know what you guys think about this military spending commitment. It sounds good on paper, but will it actually happen? Leave comments in the comment section. Until next time, this has been the Great White North Report. I'm in love with the